So I actually tried to do this video outside today, super windy, terrible luck, so I couldn't do it. So I'm back here and recording in the studio. So I want to give some breakdown on the status of the economy with small and medium-sized businesses and how your personal credit can actually play a big role in helping move forward with the economy and giving you an opportunity to earn quite a bit of money in the process, which allows directly for you to build a significant amount of wealth if you position yourself right. So with all that said, let's get into some of the ways that you can benefit using your personal credit and how you can advance forward and build wealth if you understand the real credit partnership model. Let's get started. So for the longest time, individuals were using their personal credit for personal reasons, whether it be to acquire some sort of asset, and they believe it was asset, whether it for leisure, whether it for expenditures, and so on and so forth. And it's a critical time in today's society, like especially when it comes to the economic state, to think about advancing your financial knowledge. It's about critical thinking in terms of how you can build your wealth the long-term way. Now, a lot of people look at real estate as an asset, and it's absolutely true if it's an investment property. Now, there is a significance between businesses and real estate, and I'm going to explain that to you. So real estate is a long-term game. So you invest in property, you hold for the appreciation to hold up, and then you ride the equity, right? So you're hoping that the value of that property would go up and you enjoy the benefits of that. But there's also a downside to it, which is, okay, well, you have tenants, you have all these type of issues that you have to deal with, landlord laws, you have to deal with a lot of, different type of regulations. You have to make sure your roof is good. You have to ensure the plumbing is good. So there are obligations to the utility side of it and to the tenant side of it. So there's human factor there. And it's not much different from business. Business at the end of the day, you're still going to have to deal with individuals, specifically customers. Now, the only difference, between a real estate an asset and a business asset is the fact that real estate has a solid value, which is great. So my goal today, explaining how you can use your personal credit with the aspect of going into business, is to give you some sort of clarity. See, a lot of people are really foggy up there in terms of thinking about business or building wealth with business. And I wanted to take my time to really educate you on the key differences between a business when it comes to a structure and real estate, and how you can take advantage of what's happening in the economy today. See, a lot of people don't realize, but there's more sellers than buyers in businesses today, right? So if you go to a website called, and I'm going to link the website in the description of this video, but it's called businessbuysell.com, right? And what that website is basically a listing site for a lot of businesses who are trying to sell their business, right? And the way it works is that they find a broker who represents them, or they list it themselves, and they hope for somebody, a potential buyer, to contact them through that website. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is there's a lot of wasted time doing that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people who are obtaining information about those businesses have to go through different steps with either a business broker or with the business owner themselves. There's a lot of fear from business owners that whoever I'm talking to may not potentially be wanting to buy my business, but it could be a potential competitor. Maybe they're just trying to fish for information. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And with business brokers, well, there's been a challenge where a lot of people have been trying to obtain information, and the brokers are making it more difficult because they want all sorts of information up front, even before giving the data about the business to the potential buyer. So it's not their fault. Obviously, there's regulations there. There's rules and policies that were put into place for quite a bit because they've been screwed before, potentially, right? And then they weren't really given all the details in order to complete a transaction. So because of the sheer amount of business owners trying to sell and the low amount of potential buyers that are out there, let alone potential real buyers out there, it's becoming a complicated scenario. Small to medium-sized business owners who are looking to sell their business today, right? They're looking to exit today is because they are in need of money, right? They wouldn't be putting up a business for sale if they didn't feel like they need a certain access to capital, that threshold, right? Now, it's not always the case that they're in an emergency and they need the funding and they absolutely need the cash. It could be a build-up, right? So it could be a significant time that they've been putting, let's say, 80-hour work weeks. They're not really taking vacation. They haven't really taken vacation for the last 10 years, for example. Their health is not really good because they've been putting so many hours in the workplace taking care of their business that it's taking a toll on their health. Maybe it's a medical emergency. Maybe they want to sell because they're not physically able to sustain the business the way it is today. and the demand that's required to run that business, and their health is just not up to spec, so they have no choice but to sell it. So those are some of the reasons. Or maybe it's just potential retirement, right? Their kids don't want the business. A lot of people have very bad succession planning, believe it or not. And what succession planning simply means is giving your business to the heir. It's to the next in kin, right? So whoever's your children or the next generation, hopefully if they're interested, they would acquire that business from you or take over that business and the responsibilities that come with it. A lot of people in the United States, and this is based on a survey by a series of different institutions and market research companies, over 60% of those businesses, in fact, I would even say 65% of those businesses don't have proper succession planning. They don't have a clear outline of what the next generation is going to be doing, or let alone if they're interested in taking over the business. So with all that said, with all those circumstances, retirement, medical, emergency, succession planning failure, there's a huge discrepancy in the marketplace. So a lot of people are unloading all these businesses on these listing sites, contacting brokers, trying to sell it on Craigslist and all that good stuff, and they're unsuccessful. Some of them are very successful, some of them do well, but by the time they actually do get to the selling point, the urgency and the time of thinking about selling to the point where you list it has died out, which means that the capital that you wanted today, because you can't sell it almost immediately and you have to wait a couple of months, fact of the matter, sometimes you have to wait up to 18 months before you sell a business. So imagine that state of urgency that you start with when it comes to selling a business. And by the time you reach your 18 months, what's happening, right? There's a lot more emergencies that are probably piling up. There's a lot more demand from your physical side and your mental stress and frustration that you're willing to compromise the value of your business. That means you're selling it for less. So this is a lot of stress for a lot of business owners, right? Like, we don't realize that, but we see a lot of businesses for sale. We look at on the websites, we look at the listings, and we think, oh my God, they're selling their business. They must make a lot of money. And the reality to that is, there's a lot of hidden circumstances behind the scenes. You see, there's a lot of issues that we're not even aware of. So with all that knowledge, with the knowledge of what's going on and understanding the depth of the situation of business owners and really trying to help them figure out a way to exit successfully without all the stress, the mental frustration, and the exhaustion from exiting a business and the timeline that's required, we have to position ourselves to really dig deep and understand them. So the proposal here is the credit partnership route is really not just a question of passive income for you, but it's a company like us, me and my partners. What we do is we find suitable businesses and we try to work a strategy out that we can actually give liquidity to the business owner, liquidity being cash, to the existing business owners who are trying to sell instead of waiting the 18-month period. And fact of the matter is we're able to create a better term of sale due to the fact that they're getting cash today. Statistically proven, like I said, it can take up to 18 months to sell that business. And the mere fact that the owners have an emergency today, whether it be retirement, like I said, or no succession planning, and they're just frustrated, there's a lot of emotional bonds that are created in that business. We have to keep that in mind. All these employees that were there for years, who's been supporting the business, who's been coming up and showing up for work every single day. I mean, there's a lot of emotional bonds that were built during that time. Some of the customers that are only familiar with the owner's face, I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening, right? And if you think about the holistic scenario, if you understand that, if the business owners out there are struggling to sell their business because of all those consistent issues, you start to believe, oh my God, there is quite a bit of trouble in the economy, right? There's quite a bit of trouble in the economy. And the reason I say that, right, confidently is because 80 to 90%, even more, the backbone of the economy, the taxes and all these type of infrastructure that's supported is coming from these small to medium-sized businesses. So looking at that, looking at the scenario of trying to sell a business, looking at the frustration, the mental exhaustion, the timeline that's required from a business owner's perspective to finally getting it to sell, and only 10% or more sell. It's a very small, thin margin after 18 months of the owners that actually sell. The rest, what happens to the rest? Well, statistically, a lot of business owners, 80% or more, are actually walking away from their business, right? So we always talk about the greatest transition of wealth in history, from technology, from information, to a lot of different scenarios. Industrial age is no longer relevant, but here's the scenario. If small to medium-sized business owners are giving up their equity, their liquidity, the opportunity to sell that business, the funds that would go back from the sale of that business to recycle and come in and contribute to the economy, it's being handicapped and crippled. And over time, what's going to happen is, see, a lot of big investors, right? They only pay attention to the big amount of businesses, like middle market companies, 5 million or more, 10 million or more. There's a certain, specific requirement that's required for them to even underwrite or write a check. Some of the family offices that I know would not write a check for less than $10 million. And the reason why, it's because for them, that's a suitable comfort zone for them. They have a lot of liquidity, cash, dry powder sitting in the bank, and they just need to rotate that capital in order to make it effectively work for them. The stress of writing a check for 500,000, a million, 300,000, it doesn't work for them. So it's not in line with their vision. But if you look at the total value of the economy, if you look at the small to medium-sized business owners that are struggling, those are the ones that are being ignored. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't pay attention to that, you're going to have a tumbling effect in the economy. It's going to catch up and it's going to hurt a lot of people in the process. So it's our responsibility to pay attention to that. So I know that I'm a big advocate of small to medium-sized businesses. I support local economy. But at the end of the day, if they're not able to sustain, if they're not able to sell, not only the jobs will get lost, all those years of experiences of building the wealth and keeping their business alive to the people who are working there, the relationships that were built, the bonds that were built with customers are being jeopardized at the same time. So the reason for my conversation with you guys today, right, and the big direction of what we need to look at and the big picture of what we need to pay attention to is understanding the importance and significance of how the credit partnership role and the model plays into the economy. It's a very critical part that we all have to pay attention to. One day soon, you're gonna have to think about building wealth, right? It's not gonna be a day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck, looking at other people live their dreams and lives while you're sitting back and thinking to yourself, why am I stuck in a rat race, right? Entrepreneurship starts with mental side. It doesn't start with you physically going into a business and not knowing what to do. Entrepreneurship comes from realization first. The absolute first step of entrepreneurship is the realization that you've had it with the rat race and that you want to give up all the 9 to 5, grind garbage to pursue a dream that you actually want to live the fullest when it comes to your life. No longer compromising. But we have to also be aware of the realities around that. And the realities are small to medium-sized businesses do make a majority of the economy when it comes to contribution, taxes, and everything else. So if they're being ignored, if there's a lot of struggle from business owners trying to sell, and there's a very few amount of buyers, then there's a huge opportunity to salvage the economy, to make sure that we can take participation in those opportunities, the golden opportunities. It's literally like running a marathon, but you're only running the last 5 yards and getting a medal for it. The reason I say that is because the business owners who have built their empires and businesses, who are handing you over their entire empire, have already run the rest of the marathon. So you have to think about the ultimate benefits here. Okay? So my goal was to inspire you guys to think bigger, to think about what's happening out there. What does the future look like for not only this channel, but the future of credit? What you need to use credit for, what you have to use credit for. Credit is to build wealth. It was never for you to get into debt. Good debt, yes, but good debt has income that is far more substantial than the obligation of paying on a monthly basis. And that should be that always should be your objective. Now, given there are circumstances and emergencies and you have to leverage your credit, you have to borrow, but at the end of the day, what we have to think about, we have to think about the big picture, okay? So there's a lot of information that I just shared with you guys, but I really want you to understand the significance of our conversation today, right? So if you liked what I shared, if you agree with me, and if you feel strongly about connecting with me to do a lot of great things for the economy, for businesses, for local economies, reach out to me, ali@alitaraftar.com. I'm going to leave all the information in the description of this video so you can reach out to me. I'm looking for credit partners all the time. There's way too many businesses out there that are in need of help. Legitimate businesses, very profitable. It's just the owner needs a safe pair of hands. They just want to know that you're going to be helping us, and there's a good team behind you that's willing to not only keep and maintain the existing relationships with employees, vendors, creditors, as well as the customers, and be able to add value to it so that we can contribute collectively to the economy. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed to this channel. Turn that bell icon on, so every time there's a new video like this, you'll be first to be notified. Leave a comment below. Let's have a discussion today. Leave a comment below on what are some of the things that you've noticed when it comes to small to medium-sized business owners. What exactly have you been paying attention to? What are some of the noticeable differences between them and large businesses? What would you like to do about it? And I hope that we can start doing something together. And with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Taraftar. See you guys next time. Bye for now.